Today's lesson is going to cover two different topics. The first being types of maps and the second being contemporary geographic tools. The first part on types of maps isn't necessarily something you're going to be tested on in this unit, but you should be familiar with the different types of maps that exist that you are going to be looking at from chapter to chapter. The first map you see here is a reference map. These are maps you use as reference tools. So as many of you use your GPS through your phone as a reference tool, back in the day, maybe your parents or your grandparents would have stopped off the side of the road to pick up a road map to find out what roads to take to get from one place to another. Reference maps are commonly distributed in big cities where you find a lot of tourist traffic. This can help individuals navigate the streets of a place they're going to visit and they're going to be spending quite a bit of time in. Most people today are less inclined to use paper reference maps. Instead, those maps can be accessed through smartphones and can often be replaced by GPS. Your GPS can essentially take on the place of any reference map. The next type of maps are political maps, and this shows political geography. It can show us countries, boundaries, cities. Now, these boundaries are human-made, and so they aren't recognized by Mother Nature. You can't see them from satellite orbiting Earth. These are boundaries that are established on the basis of political grounds. A physical map can show us different kinds of physical features to include mountains and rivers. Topographic maps show the Earth's terrain. Terrain involves the vertical and horizontal dimensions of land's surface. This can be expressed through elevation. A road map is a more specific type of map, but it also can be considered a reference map. When we look at road maps, we're specifically figuring out how to navigate roads, particularly when we're driving through them. Again, road maps are the types of maps folks used to use when they would try to travel to unfamiliar territory. If they understood where the roads were, they would know exactly which roads were best to take to travel to where they wanted to go. Road maps show interstates, streets, and other travel routes. Special purpose maps are maps of parks, zoos, malls, or other locator maps. The map you see here is a map of Disneyland, and these types of maps are commonly distributed when people visit these amusement parks. When you get one, you might use it to ensure that you get every ride, and if you missed one, you know exactly where to go to retrace your steps. Thematic maps are maps that communicate data. In this image, you're looking at most common causes of disability in different parts of the world. The colors are associated with those disabilities. Other examples of thematic maps could be physical maps, which we already talked about, climate maps, vegetation maps, population density maps, and economic activity maps. A choropleth map uses color to show data. This image shows the presidential election in Brazil and the colors that correspond to the candidates. This is really common to see on political maps that we look at in the United States when we associate red with Republican states, blue with Democratic states, and purple with swing states. The next map, a dot distribution map, shows density and concentration of data. The more frequently you see dots, the more prevalent the concentration of population. The less frequent you see the dots, the less concentration of population. You can also look at the darker the colors. Typically, population is more dense the darker the color. The lighter the color, the population is less dense. This is a map of Canada. As you'll notice, the darker concentration of dots in the southern region of Canada shows that that is where people reside. The reason people reside here is the further north you go, it is much colder, and it isn't necessarily the most livable place to be. The next map is proportional symbol. This indicates the size of the symbol shows density. In this case, the symbols on the map correspond with the larger number of sales of livestock in the region. This is another example of a proportional symbol map. This map shows the diaspora of Chinese migrants and Indian migrants. So if you survey the rest of the world, you will see the number of migrants in those places. And the larger the circle would mean the larger number of migrants from that country. The next map is an isolane map. These maps show space of lines indicating change. These lines that are closer together means that there is a dramatic change. These are really common when gauging precipitation and rainfall in certain areas of the world. A cartogram is a map that shows the shape of the map changes to show population. So when you look at this map, the population will be demonstrated by larger land masses, even though those land masses don't correspond to reality, but they do give us a sense of the population size in those particular regions of the world.